Tuesday afternoon.
Good to hear from you, brother.
You as well. Non-conference baseball, pretty big one tonight in Jacksonville. Florida and Florida State squaring off. Round two between those two teams. That should be fun.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Florida State kind of had its big first test over the weekend against Clemson, and really the other than the bullpen, Florida State looked really good. The problem is when Clemson got to the bullpen in each of those games, it was a total mess. And so I think the biggest thing for FSU is just recalibrating the bullpen. But otherwise, they look pretty good. And Florida, I get it. Like they continue to struggle in midweek, but to go in the box and run Royal LSU. That's very difficult to do, and they did that over the weekend and win that series.
I look at Florida and I go, they suck in the midweek, but they might be the best team in the country when it's all said and done. Like kind of looking across the SEC and thinking, okay, who can win the league outright? I know Arkansas has got a gaudy record. I need to see a little more offense from them. Man, what Florida's done in the first 2 weeks of league play to be sitting there at 4-2, pretty impressive so far.
No doubt. I mean, the big thing for UF is they're getting production up in their lineup. If you look at the lineup over the weekend against LSU, you look at their lineup against A&M, it was a wholesale effort. It wasn't just Colby Shelton or Jack Caglione getting it done. It was top to bottom. I think last week on the program I mentioned, Tyler Shelnutt for them. He's had big hit after big hit for those guys this season. So I think the biggest thing for me when I look at, UF moving forward is, and going the weekend against State is, can they figure out the starting rotation? Is Cade Fisher the answer on Friday nights? Probably not. If it's not Cade Fisher, do they move a guy like Brandon Neely into the weekend rotation? I think that's probably your safest bet, that a guy like Neely, a seasoned arm who's certainly pitched a lot of meaningful innings for the Gators over the years out of the bullpen. I think he'd be the most likely option to move to the rotation, but the question would be, who do you take out? And I think if you take somebody out, it's got to be Cade Fisher. I just don't see long term how that is your answer on a Friday night in the SEC.
But the flip side of that is if you take Neely out of the bullpen, and we're talking a little bit more about Florida because, as Kendall mentioned, that's who Mississippi State plays this weekend on the road down in Gainesville. You take like a multi-year most reliable arm out of your bullpen, and are you sure that's the answer? And then the other thing is, does it make sense to move Caglione up in the rotation? Do you take him off of Sundays and move him to Friday?
I think Sully really likes having him in that Sunday role. I think not only the security blanket on the mound a little bit, especially the way he's feeling the last couple of weeks. I know he's had a few walks, but I mean, if you look at the overall stat line against A&M and LSU, two really good offensive teams, it's not bad. And so I think he prefers to have that security blanket there. He prefers to have Cags kind of wait till Sunday to have to go out there and do double duty. The thing about Fisher that I will say is, even if you move Neely out of the bullpen into the rotation, it's not like Fisher's not used to the bullpen. I mean, that was his role last year on those teams, and successfully, by the way. So, I mean, if you move him back there, then you're moving him back to a role that he's already comfortable with. And so I don't think it's as big of a gamble as it would be vice versa.
All right, so Mississippi State's got Samford tonight in Birmingham, and then they head down to Gainesville this weekend. Bulldogs go to College Station this past weekend. I thought they pitched it really well. Offense was not huge, but, man, that's a good pitching staff for Texas A&M. What did you take away from Mississippi State and their trip to College Station this past weekend?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's weird to look at a series where a team lost 6-1 in the finale and go, you know what, I feel really good about that team. But I feel really good about that team. I think when you look at Mississippi State overall, I love their offensive approach. They make you throw strikes. Teams that do not throw strikes against them are going to get worn out. They will capitalize on it. They can really hit, even though the numbers might not have shown in a couple of games over the weekend. I like their identity. They're aggressive. They're hard-nosed. And just from a mental standpoint, that team looks like a total 180 from last year in terms of their confidence level. They always thought they were going to win, even late in the game when they were down against A&M in the final game. I think the other thing for me is I think the pitching staff's dangerous. I think all of a sudden now, you look at Sierra and the job that he did over the weekend against A&M. Obviously, Cal Steven, recalibrating himself after the LSU start, I thought was huge. That gives him a lot of confidence going into Gainesville. And the other thing is, sounds like Nate Dome is close to return as well. So I mean, I already like the staff, but I tell you what, you throw Nate Dome in there, that
Yeah.
takes a ton of pressure off the series and the Cal Stevens of the world and Durangelos of the world to have to go out there and give you an A+ start every single weekend. It just takes a lot of pressure off the entire team. So I like their look, man. Like they're good offensively. Hunter Hines heating up in the middle of the lineup to me is a massive key. That's been big for them. I mean, I think his OPS was like below 700 a couple weeks ago. It's now approaching 900, so massive progress. And again, I think on the mound they just give you a lot of different looks, and and Lamonis too. I feel like he has a little bit of different edge this year. Obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, like he's a very motivated guy this year. He's
Sure.
fighting for his job a little bit, and I feel like the team kind of feeds off that. This team plays with their hair on fire, and that makes them pretty dangerous.
Ole Miss and Kentucky coming up in Oxford this weekend. Ole Miss took 2 of 3 from South Carolina the opening weekend. They had to get one, or it felt like they had to get one in Knoxville. They did, but they were also run ruled twice on the weekend.
Yeah.
I know that you would subscribe to, they needed to get one. How concerned are you about the 2, though, that they didn't get being as dominant as they were?
Yeah, I mean that is a big question mark, right? I mean, the goal in the SEC is much as it probably pains Ole Miss fans to say this, and state fans for that matter. The goal in the SEC against teams like Tennessee is you just don't want to get swept.
Yeah.
So I think if you're Mike Bianco and you look ahead to this weekend against UK, you want to see a lot more out of your team. I mean, getting run ruled twice, no matter who you're playing, is a little bit embarrassing. So I did see positives. I think if you look at Fisher, I thought Liam Doyle actually threw really well against him. I think he had 10 strikeouts and 6+ innings over the weekend. So there are positives you can derive from the weekend. But I think as they go back home and face Kentucky, I saw Kentucky earlier this year. And the thing about UK with Mitch Daly and Grant Smith and guys like that, Emilian Petre, they're not going to beat themselves. But what they're also not going to do, on the road at least, I don't think, is put up a lot of runs. And so I actually feel like Ole Miss matches up very well with them at home. I think Ole Miss recorrects itself this weekend and gets 2 or 3 against UK. But, we'll kind of see what happens, after those 2 ugly games there in Knoxville.
Yeah, and Mike told us yesterday, another tweak to the pitching rotation this weekend. Going to start Mason Nichols in Game 1 and keep Doyle in Game 2, and they're going to move Gunnar Dennis from Friday to Sunday after a couple of tough starts for Grayson Saunier.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how that plays out because Nichols has pitched really well in the opportunities that he's had.
Yeah, no doubt. And even last year, when he came into some big situations, I always really liked his demeanor. I thought he was never too high or too low.
Borky, did I screw? It's Riley Maddox that's starting, right? Not Mason Nichols. I messed that up.
It's Riley Maddox.
Riley Maddox is going to start Game 1. He's been really good in the midweek. They'll keep Mason Nichols in the bullpen, so it's Maddox in Game 1.
Oh, okay. I was about
and
to say,
then
okay.
Doyle.
I was about to say that's actually a very interesting move, but I like his.
Yeah,
I like how he is mentally. So
yeah, complete screw up on my part. Sorry about that, Kendall. Scratch that. Ignore it.
No, it's okay. No, I mean, overall, just kind of look at the rotation setup. I like the idea of keeping Doyle on Saturdays. Obviously, threw really well over the weekend. It kind of gives you a little bit of security blanket, right? If you have a snafu on Fridays, he's there to kind of save you on a Saturday. And so, I'll like I said, I like them at home this weekend. Tennessee playing in that ballpark, things can get away from you really, really quickly. And on the flip side, for Tennessee in the Saturday game there in the 9th inning, things got away with from them a little quickly. So that playing at that ballpark is just a little different than everywhere else, in my opinion.
Minute left. 2 series that are really interesting to me. South Carolina at Alabama. Both have been good at home. Neither have been great on the road. And LSU at Arkansas. If LSU loses this series, Tigers kind of look up and they're like, okay, we got some work to do.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'll look at 2 teams real quick. LSU, Auburn. Those are the 2 teams I've circled this weekend. LSU. I will say this about the Hogs. I would not want to play LSU when they're staring down the barrel of 3 straight series losses. I like Arkansas in this series. I think that's really dangerous. Auburn is the other one for me. They're a team that we thought coming into the season would be a slam dunk postseason team more than likely. They're in a situation now where if they don't win that series this weekend, they're either 2-7 in conference or they're 1-8. And I don't know about you, but in this SEC this year, I don't think you're coming out of that hole. And so I think this weekend in College Station, as bizarre as it sounds, 3 weeks into it, like might honestly be like their last stand. Like if they don't win this series, they've got a very long way to go to get back in the discussion.
Kendall, thanks as always for